The Hyuga Clan is loved by many, and a lot of people in the fandom complain that they were sidelined after part 1. Some people claim that the Hyuga Clan is actually pretty powerful, very strong, and that they should have received a little more screen time during Shippuden. But the thing is, were they really that powerful to begin with? By the way, like this video if you enjoy the Hyuga Clan, and subscribe to this channel if you like my content. I am not a huge fan of the Hyugas. I don't think they're bad by any chance, but they are not even close to being my favorite characters. I don't think the Byakugan is that cool. I don't really think their abilities are very interesting. I like Neji's arc, at least in part 1, even though his fight against Naruto is kinda weird. The themes in that fight are all over the place. If you wanna see that fight in a different light, please consider watching my Naruto rewrite. The next episode is going to feature that fight. Link in the description for those. But overall, I like Neji's arc. Hinata is fine-ish. She is the wife of the main character, but I don't really like the romantic development, which I'm also intending to, change a little bit in the rewrite. But other than that, the Hyuga Clan hasn't really done much. And I think I kinda know why. Initially, Kishimoto established this clan so that they could be the counters to anyone in the verse. If you think about it, you're struck by a Hyuga Gentle Fist, your chakra is useless. You can't really use your chakra, so you can't use jutsu, so that should be a good counter for anyone who's too OP. But the thing is, they are not the best taijutsu users by a long shot. They are not that fast, they're not that skilled. Even Neji, who's by far the strongest Hyuga, he was never the strongest Genin in the tuning exams, for instance, and in Shippuden he didn't get very strong either. And the problem is that I don't know how they could make the Hyuga stronger because their abilities are pretty limited. Unless if you gave Neji godlike speed, well then you're kind of limited to just taijutsu rotation. He has some ranged options as well, but nothing major. Also, his ultimate defense isn't nearly as good as Gaara's or Sasuke's or many other characters. And some people may say that this happened because in Shippuden characters just spiked in power, and in Shippuden then Hyugas were forgotten and that's why they became underpowered, but I completely disagree. The Hyugas were already much inferior to the Uchiha clan, for example. Kakashi with a 3 Tomoe Sharingan was far more powerful than any Hyuga has ever been, for instance. And we can clearly see that the Sharingan is overall a better ocular ninjutsu than the Byakugan from part 1. And when Itachi shows up and then uses his Mangekyou, we get the feeling that the Byakugan has nothing on the Sharingan, especially Mangekyou. Sure, being able to see chakra is very useful, but the Sharingan can do that as well. The Byakugan has more precision, they can actually see the chakra network within the body, but the Sharingan does a pretty good job at seeing chakra and all that. The other advantage the Byakugan provides is that you have a 360-degree view around you, and you can also see from very far away. Sure, that's very useful for shinobis that are in a mid-jonin level, maybe high jonin level even, but the Sharingan just absolutely destroys everything the Byakugan has. And I'm not talking about the OP, MS, and EMS Sharingans and all that, I'm just talking about the base Sharingan. The precognition a 3 Tomoe Sharingan provides is much better than anything the Byakugan can ever do. The Sharingan also allows you to copy ninjutsu from other ninjas. We clearly see when Sasuke evolves his Sharingan in the battle in the Valley of the End that he gets absolutely unstoppable, and Naruto has to use this entire cloak of the Kyuubi chakra to compete. Neji, with his Byakugan being the genius Hyuga, lost to a much lesser Kyuubi amp. So are the Hyugas strong? No, not really. If you're actually comparing them to other ninjas, especially in Shippuden. And also if you compare them to the Uchiha as well, they are not really that strong. Of course they're not fodder by any chance. If you compare them with the average ninja, they're much stronger, but still, they're far from being on the top of the verse in terms of power. They've always had this limitation that essentially their Byakugan, it doesn't really evolve like the Sharingan. And sure, we have the Mangekyou Sharingan, but the Sharingan, the base Sharingan also evolves with the Tomoe count, which is something that progresses the power of the ninja who's using it. But if you think about it, every Hyuga who awakens the Byakugan essentially has the same powers because they have the same Byakugan. It's not something that evolves. They have the same power level. And then, of course, you have some ninjas that are more skilled using the Hyuga abilities like Neji that are gonna be more powerful, but his eyes, well, they're not really that powerful, you know? It's just the Byakugan. Ao has the Byakugan as well, and he seems to have exactly the same abilities as the Hyugas have. So I don't know how you could introduce that, but an evolution of the Byakugan, sure, we have the Jogan or whatever now, but we don't even know what that does. And the Tenseigan, but it's essentially a Byakugan. It does the same thing. They are not very creative evolutions. Also, by the way, this story about the Hyuga clan living on the moon is the most idiotic thing since Kaguya, I guess. Yeah, there have been many stupid things in the end of Naruto, and of course in the entire Boruto series. But ninjas living on the moon, that's very bad. It's absolute trash. People like the last, but this plot about them going to the moon is just absolute garbage. And all of a sudden, in the end of Shippuden, and then in the last and Boruto, the Hyuga clan become important again after being so useless for the entire narrative. It's almost like Kishimoto was like, oh yeah, I forgot about the Hyuga. Let me make them, you know, the descendants of this guy who lived on the moon, because I guess... And it doesn't really make sense because the Byakugan is so much weaker than the Sharingan. Kaguya, which is supposed to be, you know, the strongest character or whatever, which she is not, but anyway, she has the Byakugan. And the Byakugan is such a useless jutsu when you're talking about characters of that level. Are you telling me that the Byakugan is gonna be useful for you when you're fighting Rinnegan Sasuke and Sage of Six Paths Naruto? Of course it's not. It's just there for cosmetic value, nothing more. I personally don't mind that the Hyuga weren't very focused on during Shippuden because I wasn't really a huge fan of them, so I was fine with it. But I know a lot of people really enjoy them, and I can see ways of how to make them a little bit more interesting that are not sending them to the moon or whatever. That's so stupid. And you know what's more interesting? Why would the Cloud Village send their leaders to go and hunt a Byakugan, of all things, in Konoha? Yeah, they got in trouble for that, but, you know, you have the Uchiha clan, who are clearly more powerful. Why don't you go and get a Sharingan? But I have to give it to the Hyuga clan. The 64 palms and the 128 palms are very nice, cool-looking jutsus. They are probably the coolest things about the Hyuga clan, much cooler than the Byakugan itself. The imagery of that jutsu, the yin-yang sign that appears and all those symbols that appear around the user who's gonna use all those attacks at the same time, that insane barrage of attacks that target your chakra points. It's very cool. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. If you like the Hyuga clan, tell me how would you improve them down below. And thanks for watching.